Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out, or thanks for logging on to this Sunday Night's Endangered Story. So, for those of you who are here because you're excited to see Miss Machen, that's great because I was equally as excited to interview her. She's been commenting on the Endangered Stories videos for quite some time. She was my teacher at John Rennie, and it's always interesting to meet your teachers, 25, 30 years plus after you've had them as a teacher, to get kind of like an adult perspective of who they are. And see if it lines up with your childhood perspective on who they are, who they were. What I didn't realize about Miss Machen, and this is after I'd done a lot of this historical stuff, is that she's a Vawa kid. Not only is she a Vawa kid, but for those of you who grew up in Vawa and who are of a certain age, the name Machen is huge. Her father was a reverend at Vawa United for, you could say, decades. She married a ton of you. She baptized a ton of you. So I really wanted to give justice to these two sort of parts of her story. One is, of course, the growing up in Vawa and in Point Claire in those early years in the 40s and 50s and what that was like. She's been on some videos already, but now it's a back and forth. What that was like. So, and in there she gets into her father and why they came to Vawa and her father's influence on the community and her experiences growing up in a still relatively small suburban town. And then another part is, of course, her career. We knew her as a teacher and kind of get behind her teaching method. And for lack of better ways of saying this, why she was the way she was when she was teaching. So there's two parts. Tonight, you're going to see actually part 2. I thought I was going to do it chronologically, but I felt that I needed to do the teaching part first because I think the responses that I was getting when I did the teaser was mostly, I had her as a teacher. She was my favorite teacher. So I want to do that first. And I actually think it's a bit more interesting because a lot of you know her like this. And so I think that we need to take care of that and do the teaching part first. And then next week, we're going to get into who she is and her upbringing and what her parents were like and just that whole story. So this is part 2 of a 2-part series with my conversation with Miss Machen. Enjoy. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe below so you can get notified when we post these videos and stuff. Okay? Thank you. Enjoy. For 30
One of my
years.
students defined me the best way that I've ever heard. Machen, you have the attention span of a fly with a lobotomy. There's your sentence.
Okay. When I did home ec, which was right next to your class,
Yes.
I remember with Miss Pfeiffer,
Yes.
we would be sewing,
Yes.
and we would hear you next door, and we would be looking at each other. We'd be thinking, what are they learning in this class? Who is this teacher? And of course, we were always kind of looking at who were the teachers in the next grade.
That's right.
And sort of sizing them up and saying who
Stay
we were
away from
terrified with.
Machen. Yes.
Like Town we were very curious about.
Yes.
Mikulachki we were very curious
Yes.
about. Blackman had a reputation to him. And then there was Machen. And with Machen, it was like, it was a crapshoot. We weren't sure exactly what was going on in that class, And then, of course, Jason gets his teacher list for grade 11, and there's Machen. And I said, this has to be a joke. So we get into the class, and I'm thinking, this type of teacher is not going to be good for me.
Well, this is it. I mean, I think that that's very important too. I don't remember. There was a class, it might have been yours, which was too large. And Mr. Blackman didn't have enough students.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And so they chose, like the students chose. I'm not insulted by that. I wasn't insulted at all by that. I
For
understand.
someone to choose Blackman over you?
Well, to say,
reputation
may I get out of this class and go and
Holy
for
moly.
sanity?
Blackman was he was a fantastic teacher, but he was known as one of the more, you couldn't mess around in his class, you know? Right after grade 11, you went to teachers college?
No, I went to McGill. No, I went to Montreal High School, which was an experience for me because that was right dead in the center of the city.
For what, grade 12?
Grade 12, because it was less expensive than first year McGill. And then I went to McGill. And then I went to Edinburgh for my teacher's training.
Why?
Because you got a choice between Edinburgh and McDonald. I love McDonald College. It's a beautiful campus, but excuse me.
Were you under scholarship?
No, it was cheaper to go to Edinburgh because our dollar was so good. It was cheaper at that point for me to go to Edinburgh.
What was Scotland's currency at that time?
Pounds, shillings, pence.
And it was better than the pound? Or it just was comparable to the pound?
Way better. Our Canadian dollar at that time, I was able to go across. I went by ship because I had to take stuff with me. Live there, study there, do traveling, but I probably got a bit money to do that. But for the same cost as going to McDonald.
And your parents funded this?
No. We all had. No, my father was a minister. He
worked.
gave me. Yeah, but my mother was working then. Actually, my mother was working for Harter House, and we worked summer jobs.
What summer job did you work?
Well, I worked at the Bell Telephone for a couple of summers, and then I worked at Sherwin Paint Factory for some reason.
Well, you said for some reason.
But I don't know how I got there.
For some reason.
I don't know.
Are you conscious of your decision making?
No, I'm not. I had ended up in Edinburgh University because my friends said, let's go overseas for our training, or overseas after, and they had money. I had to make sure I had some money, which I did in the long run, and so therefore they applied to London University, and I applied to Reading University, which was near London. London was finished by then. Yeah. But at that time, fortunately, a professor was smart enough to realize that I was a woman, because it's Pat Machin, okay?
Oh.
And it's an all-male university. He wrote me the most beautiful letter. I wish I had kept it, saying, I would rather think that. And it was at that, I nearly got into an all-male university by accident, okay? So the last place to go was Edinburgh, which was in actual fact the first place to go. So my training there was amazing.
That was how many years? 2 years?
1 year.
Just 1 year?
Because I had my McGill, I had my degree.
Ever cross your mind that you'd like to stay?
No. I came home, but I loved it there. But
so
no.
You come home, and you come back home to Valois.
I come back home to Valois. My father had talked to Ed Carroll, who was the head of personnel, and they had a job for me at Cedar Park.
Oh.
So my first teaching was at Cedar Park.
How did you get there?
That I got myself my first car, which was an Austin Mini.
So you started at Cedar Park. What was the school year that you started there?
61.
61, 62.
Yeah.
And you were there until?
3 years. So 62, 3, 4, 64, yeah.
And then what happened?
And then I went to Harter House.
Where's that?
That's the one that I was talking about, Auntie Gertrude's School for Emotionally Disturbed. Yes, yeah, it was fascinating.
But the curriculum must have been completely different.
We were, yeah. I mean, it was, they were learning.
Training for that, or?
No, there was no such thing. We trained in the classroom. There was no such thing as training for it. Yeah, and we did curriculum, but it was, those kids were in such dismay. Like it was it was a peaceful place for them, so that was the most important thing, that they got their bearings. But they're also, I mean, they were bright and everything. It was emotionally disturbed, which was a category unto itself, you know. But then I came back to John Rennie, I guess, in 66.
66.
I think so, yeah.
66, 67.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about, so now you're, so,
Yeah.
so,
Yes, I know. That's one of my favorite pictures.
yeah. Is this a yearbook picture? Is that why
No,
this
it's
was
just a kid took it in the classroom. Yeah. Fortunately, I hadn't my black eyes at that point. That spring I went out with friends, and I played a lot of tennis, and I was showing one of them how to do a forward thrust, or whatever you call it. And whoever sent the ball to me didn't quite, so I hit myself between the eyes, okay? And so it was very embarrassing, you can imagine. I'm fine. And I went into school the next day, and as the day progressed, I developed 2 large black eyes.
Oh my God.
Because they came right down. But those glasses, I remember them because it took you a moment. If you came up to my desk and spoke to me, that's when you noticed that I had 2 black eyes.
Oh, so
And then it was hard for a student to tell me that because they thought maybe I would know it already, you know, but it was obvious. But
so you end up at John Rennie.
yes.
Would you have been the only person on faculty who actually grew up in this area? I mean, you're teaching.
No,
you
Reg
kinda-
Watts. No. Ruth Giddy. No, there was a number of us that did. It's hard to go through
Yeah.
the names just like that. But
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't have been. I was one of the few. But Gordon knows where he was from Vawa. No, there were some of us that were from Vawa, from the area. Yeah.
So you're still quite young though. At that point.
Yeah.
You're not even 30 years old.
No, because I was
you're-
21. I was 21 when I started teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the 60s now. 66, 67. We're really talking about an era where the kids are really have their own identity.
Yes.
As teenagers. Did you feel a big disconnect at that point? Because your mother was not, obviously she didn't feel it. She was very aware of kids and what they're like, but I mean, you're still a kid yourself
Yes.
almost.
Yes.
Know?
Yeah. No, I didn't feel a disconnect.
Was it difficult though?
No.
With kids that
No,
are
I
almost
mean,
your age? so to
well,
speak?
No, first of all, I didn't. No, I honestly, I think, as I said, I lived in the present. I didn't. That wasn't. I lived in what I was doing. So, when I first went to John Rennie, that the new teacher syndrome, they needed a drama instructor, not a drama instructor. They needed somebody to be the supervisor for the drama club, right? And of course. So I ended up doing theater for the first, and that was an amazing experience. I had never done it before.
Right.
And we did some really good plays of Tom Pound with his lighting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We actually did a coffee house first, which I think I told you about, with Brian Greenway. Came to jam. Well, I didn't know who Brian Green. Well, he was a student at that point, but I didn't know what else he was. But I was willing to play. My mother was willing to play. My father was willing to play. The willingness to play, I think, was a theme. Must have been.
Explain to me what you mean by play.
I'm playing with you now. I was willing. When I saw what you were doing, I was really willing to be any kind of resource that I could be for you, because it was neat what you were doing. And I found learning neat because I did. I guess I taught North American literature. That was given up by somebody, and I took it on. And I learned so much, as my mother said too, I guess. Yeah, I was willing to play because I thought that was an era where the new poets were out. Leonard Cohen, Irving Layton. You know, Leonard Cohen was just writing.
Well, Beautiful Loser.
No. That was no. The poetry. His poetry is stunning.
Which predates that book, I think.
I guess so. I don't.
You started
I
in the
did
late
North
50s.
American literature.
So you weren't teaching English when you first started?
Yes, I was teaching English, but the North American literature was a side course, and nobody wanted it because I was a junior teacher. So I was teaching grade 9, maybe even grade 8. I mean, I was junior, okay, and they were very good. The senior teachers were really good. I think that this is something that we were privileged. They would give us a mixed set of classes. They didn't just give us, as new teachers, the weaker classes, you know. So we were given a good class and a weak class, and we learned a lot in both, you know. But then this North American literature came up. Nobody wanted it, and you know, it's the same thing. Yeah, no, it's a playing thing.
In the 70s, well, John Rennie expanded, right? And that's many years after you started, because just the influx of all these baby boomer kids, it was incredible.
Oh yes, I mean I can remember the year that they were building the new building. Alex Donaldson always wore a yellow helmet because he thought it was funny. He was the vice principal, and I can remember the first year when it opened, and I had this huge class. We had this huge class, and they did a fire drill down the fire escapes because it wasn't quite set. So we clanked down the fire escape, got outside, and this very keen fireman asked me who I was missing. I had been with the class for one day, okay? I hadn't even brought out my attendance. I didn't know where. I have 40 kids in the class at that point. Because they hadn't sorted it out. I mean, they were sorting myself. It out. Well, that was long before you, but I mean, it was. I can remember the size of the place changing immensely. But you ask about play. I mean, somebody didn't want to do the yearbook anymore, so I said to a group of students, "Do you want to play?" We did the yearbook. You know, I didn't know anything about photography or anything.
Because it was a photography. There was a dark room.
Yeah, we found the dark room. Yeah.
When you found the dark room.
Well,
it was a dark room.
Well, it was there, but
it's an archaeological dig.
No, it was there, so we started using. We had no idea. In fact, the first pictures done for the yearbook were done in somebody's basement, and then that's how we found out about laundry and lint.
Oh my God!
Yeah, we were processing the picture, and we did it from scratch.
What kept you at John Rennie so many years?
Well, it's the same thing probably as my father stayed at VAWA. It kept changing. I kept changing. I did that program. I did the AOP. I did, you know, there was no reason to move. People changed. Students changed. And I was learning all the time. I was doing something different, you know.
Do you remember anything distinctive from, because you started with boomers, then you went to the Gen Xers, let's say the 80s.
Okay.
And then when you were at the tail end was, really they were kind of almost the oldest millennials, a little bit of end of Gen X and millennials. Do you remember anything unique about any of these generations?
I think I met them one by one. I mean, the classroom, I could be at the front of the classroom performing quite easily. I knew that. And I knew it wasn't really the way to teach. So I wasn't at the front that often, you know, and so I was knowing them as individuals, I think. I don't know.
So you weren't able to group them in a generation, to look at them as a...
I guess I would now, maybe more. At the time, they were just young people learning. I know they were meeting different forces outside. I know that. I know, for example, in those first years when that new school was built, was also when those drugs came in. And the
culture,
the culture of the drugs, and learning about that was something, because it was huge. It was huge. There's no question of that.
It was foreign to you.
Yes, it was, and not only was it foreign to me, but it was very frightening because of I think that one of the biggest memories that was, we had a fire. The lights went out. The place was in total darkness, and some kids got into the washrooms and what do you call it, lit up or did up, you know. And it was chaos because we could hear these kids in dismay, and we didn't know where anybody was, you know, because we couldn't see. It was dark. We didn't have smartphones at that time. I learned about the smartphone has a flashlight in it, eh? It's But that wasn't the nature of the school. I'm not saying that the school was a drug school. I'm saying that it was something new that came in and we had to deal with it. And it dissipated. It changed. But it was for us a bit terrifying, probably because we didn't understand it until we understood it. And I think that the kids understood it too. You know, I mean, it was something you couldn't not face. Product. I got product. I know that. I know what you meant, and I understand that. But I did get product. I succeeded because I loved it, and I had very good students. If you remember, my classroom hadn't been painted in 20 years, and it had become. It wasn't graffiti. It was incredible writing all over the walls.
Yeah, but your classroom was the types. The reason why it was interesting is because it's like we were going to Machen's house.
Yes, and it was all my students
Whereas,
writing. It was spontaneous. It started with one girl writing her identity on the wall because she was angry they hadn't painted.
So you retired in '97. Did you complete that
Oh
year?
yes, oh yeah. I retired.
And that was the 1 year that the French kids came in.
That's right. It was fun.
And that was your last year.
That was my last year, and I did really well with the French teachers. Because I gave them the key to the darkroom.
That you just discovered.
And they did experiments in physics in there. It was fun. I got along with them very well. Once and they liked my classroom. You're right. You know, they were horrified when it was painted. They painted the classroom, and I knew at that point. And they also did not give me a full load. And they gave me, after 2 months, they gave me a grade 9 class, which I had not had in a long time. It wasn't a problem, but I had to get used to the age group, okay? And I did. But I knew that I didn't want to fight this. So I retired. I ended up teaching it to Miss Edgars and Miss Cramps. If you want to think of an anomaly there, the Machen at Miss Edgars and Miss Cramps was quite funny. But substituting and so on. And then, I've done many, many things since, but it just was time to leave because I didn't want to fight it. I love teaching. I still do it in many ways. I work with editing and so on like that, and writing. And adults are much harder to corral than young people, I have to say. They don't believe me. Yeah, and I have trouble, and I don't finish my sentences, and I do tend to go off and sideline. But those who know me get me back on track. I was 57 when I retired, but I'm privileged. I am so privileged to be the age I am. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to Italy in September with two younger people.
To me, you seem the exact same as you were back then.
Yeah, I'm very privileged. I know that. Yes, I keep the cane. And as you see, I fold it up.
Well, it folds up quite nicely.
Yes, but it is because I have a bit of a balance thing going on. But it's just because I have a bit of a balance thing going on, and I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Babs and I, we were in grade 1 together. We email every day to make sure we're alive. Did I tell you that? Yeah.
Not in that way.
Well, yeah, it is. I've got a phone number for her. She's got a phone number for me. If I don't answer within a certain time, I mean, that's.
What age does that start?
It started probably about 10 or 15 years ago. When my mother died, Babs went to the funeral, and she said, "Now you're alone. Do you want to travel?"
I'm going to put this story on pause for 2 seconds here. I wasn't a big reader in high school.
Okay.
I only discovered reading.
I think that's the other thing that's very funny about you. I mean, you were theater through and through.
Yeah.
And that you discovered this, I give credit to somebody who just turned you on.
I had to read for drama, but I wasn't a big reader, which is why when you told the class one day to bring in the books that you're reading, I told you why I wanted to see what kids were reading at home. I wasn't freaking reading. So I didn't know different levels of reading or what we should be reading. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I could have brought in The Outsiders. I could have brought in Shakespeare. I wouldn't know the difference. So I went to my parents' bookshelf and I picked out a book. It was a collection of stories, and I brought it, and I think you said, just put it on your desk and I'm going to walk around and see. You got to my desk. You fell in complete hysterics. And you did, I don't know, you must have taken 2 steps back, and you did one of your hilarious moments where you're just completely, like, just ruined with laughter.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, what the hell did I bring in? And you said, Bolanis! There is no way that you were reading Ernest Hemingway.
No.
It was a collection of Ernest Hemingway. I can't even spell, and I'm reading Ernest Hemingway at home. So you called me out, and I was just like, oh my god.
But I didn't fail you for it or anything.
No. But I mean, it was on brand with how you were teaching the class, anyways, and who you were. So it was funny.
I think what you're doing is magnificent. I think that it's exciting. I love seeing what you do next. I love the research that you do. I love the reactions of people. I always post it on my I love Facebook. Oh, well, the famous story is everybody on Facebook stood on their heads and said, "Have you seen what Jason Bolanis has said?" I mean, I saw Kevin a couple of times at the McDonald's in Beaconsfield, but I hadn't seen you.
This is the class of Miss Machen. Got Master Souls.
Did you really think I was dead?
Listen, in my defense, as a young kid, I knew that you were one of the older generation teachers.
Yes.
So I had no sense of age at the time.
Okay.
So
So
there I'm thinking I had Miss Machen, let's say 25, 27 years ago.
Okay.
How old could she have been at that time? I'm thinking Miss Christie, I'm thinking Miss Forer, and I'm thinking Miss Machen. I said, she had to have been maybe 65, late 60s or something. So I tag on an extra 25 years. And then I'm thinking how crazy we're. It's like she's probably wandered into a street or something like that. She couldn't have survived another 25 years. So it's like my instinct was to say, God rest her soul. That's when Sarah Burke said, she's
so good. She's so good at that.
And so when you saw that, what did you
I think I wrote you immediately and
said... No, you wrote my brother and said you were going to haunt my dreams.
Yeah, because I wasn't, I don't know how, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was killingly funny. I wasn't in any way offended. I really think what you're doing is excellent, and I will support you anyway, including doing this, which is the last thing on earth that I would want to do.
Is it the...
Because I'm out of control. You're controlling. I have no control, and I know I'm spastic, and I know my weaknesses.